welcome to Learn Live. I'm Becca and this is Emily, and we both work in the Education and Engagement team here at the UK Parliament. So today you're going to be learning all about how laws are made here at Parliament. So you're going to start by watching a video all about that process, and then Emily and I are going to be asking and answering some questions about it. So we'll see you very shortly.
Both the House of Commons and the House of Lords share the job of making laws. But where do laws come from in the first place? A law is a rule we've all agreed to live by. Laws help everyone understand what we must and must not do. Ideas for new laws are called bills. They can be suggested by lots of different people, including political parties and campaign groups. A bill can begin in the House of Commons or the House of Lords. MPs and Lords always check bills very carefully because making and changing laws affects everyone in the country. They do this by holding debates in each house where they can discuss what they agree and disagree with in the bill and suggest changes. Sometimes a bill can go backwards and forwards between the two houses lots of times. This is called parliamentary ping pong. Once the two houses agree, then it's the monarch's turn. It's their job to formally agree the bill. This makes it an Act of Parliament, and only then is it a law.
Hello and welcome back. So we really hope you enjoyed that video and it taught you a little bit more about how laws are made. So Emily and I are now going to give you a few more details about that. So I'm going to start by asking Emily a question, which is, where do most ideas for new laws come from?
That's a really good question. New laws are usually put forward by the government. So we call a draft of a law a bill, which is what is being discussed the whole time it's in Parliament. So that will be discussed by the House of Commons and by the House of Lords, and usually it will be the government in the House of Commons that put that forward, and it starts there and then it sort of bounces backwards and forwards between the two, like we saw in the video. So that's where they usually start, but they don't always. Backbenchers, which is all the other MPs that are not in the government, can also put forward bills. And actually the public have got loads of ideas for laws that they would like to be put forward. So actually the ideas themselves often come from all sorts of different places, and then they sort of come into Parliament through one of the members.
Okay, so ideas can come from all sorts of different places.
Yeah,
that's good to know.
So do you know about any of the laws that are being made at the moment, Becca?
Well, there are some really interesting ones. So Emily just mentioned that not all ideas for laws come from the government. Sometimes they come from members of Parliament called backbenchers, so that aren't part of the government. And there is one being created at the moment that was put forward by a particular MP designed to make school uniforms a little bit cheaper. So if you'd like to know a little bit more about that particular law, have a look on the UK Parliament website, and maybe if you think it's a good idea, you can show your support for it.
It's a really good idea.
So, Emily, are there any experts involved in making new laws?
Yes, there are lots of experts here at Parliament. So the House of Lords is a really good example because everybody who works in there has been chosen because they've got experience or expertise that's going to be really, really useful to the process of debating and also making new laws. So there will be lots of people in there who have got something specific to say. About the school uniform bill you just talked about. There will be people who have worked in schools and who sort of have worked in business, and they'll all be talking about the different ways that law might affect what they know.
So whatever law is put forward, there's probably a member of the House of Lords that knows quite a lot about it.
Yeah, and members of the House of Commons as well come from a really diverse range of careers, so there's a lot of experience here to be drawn on. Yeah.
Good. So what sort of things are discussed when they're trying to decide on new laws in the House of Commons and the House of Lords?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I just touched on the idea that they'll be talking about all the different ways that law is going to affect people. So sometimes you might put forward a new law and it's designed to, help a certain group of people, but in doing that it might have a negative effect somewhere else. So they're going to make sure that that it's written in a way that there's not going to be sort of unintended consequences. So that's one thing they'll talk about. They'll talk about the problem that they're trying to solve and making sure that law is the right way to be solving the problem. They'll sort of go into a lot of detail and talk about the wording of the law as well. And there's actually part of the process of making a law where it goes into and smaller groups of members of the House of Lords and members of the House of Commons go and look at it and really in detail to make sure, and they'll hear lots of people's opinions on it to make sure that it's sort of exactly right. So you've got to get these things right because they sort of become quite permanent actually.
Laws affect our lives every day, so
yeah,
they've got to be right.
They do, but that actually leads on quite nicely to the next question, which is what happens when laws go out of date, because obviously they are permanent when they're made by Parliament, so what happens then?
Well, that is a really good question. So laws have to change as society changes. So a really good example of this is before 1918, so just over 100 years ago, not a single woman in the United Kingdom had the right to vote. That all changed with the Representation of the People Act in 1918, which gave women over 30 and men over 21 the right to vote. That then changed 10 years later, and all men and women got the right to vote from the age of 21. But then about 40 years after that, it all changed again when the voting age was lowered to 18. And then who knows, maybe in the future, the voting age will change again. So laws do have to change as society evolves and changes as well.
So they'll like amend the law or
Exactly.
potentially write a new law that will go over the top of it. So
exactly.
yeah, we're always keeping on top of things.
And final question, Emily, what can I do if I want to have a say on a new law which is being considered?
Okay, so your representative here at Parliament is your local MP. So there are 650 MPs and they all represent different areas of the country. So every single person has one MP who's their representative here. So the best way to have your say would be to contact your MP and have your say through them. So they might say your point in a debate, or they might write to somebody to sort of express the point of view that you're trying to put across. So that would be a really, really big one. You can also contact members of the House of Lords as well if you wanted to. So that's an option too. If you've got an idea for a new law that you'd like to be considered, there are a few different ways you can get in touch with Parliament to do that. So again, contacting your MP is a really good one. You can write to them, or potentially you could put forward a petition, which is like a big list of signatures, which is usually done online now, where you can kind of put forward your idea, and then Parliament might have a debate on it. So that's another way to kind of get your idea being talked about here at Parliament.
Yes.
So there are lots of ways you can have your say.
Cool. So that is all we've got time for today's Learn Live. So thank you so much for joining us, and we really hope you've learned a little bit more about how laws are created here at the UK Parliament. So thank you very much, and we'll see you again soon. Goodbye.
Bye.